I'm a turkey. Boy, have we got a huge mess. Look at all this dust everywhere. And look at this poor bobber. Oh man. We made a fiberglass seat pan for a CB500. And it's pretty sweet. We're still working on our seat pan here, trying to make everything come together on this, make our dreams, all of our dreams come true. We got the tray, the seat tray done on the bottom, and now we need to do the seat pan on the top. And before we can really get to that, we need to figure out the latching mechanism for the seat pan, how that's gonna work. And how I'm planning on making that work is with this guy here. This is off a Honda CBR600, I believe, and it is a little latch mechanism. It's got a little cable pull right here. We can pull this guy, and that operates this latch mechanism on the top here, like that. And so you can see with this guy that it has the little slope here, so it's designed to sort of push down, set down this way. So it sets down like that, it runs into like whatever the little latch mechanism on the other end of this is, that depresses, it goes in, and then pops open again, and then it's secured down. And so we need to make that work, and it's also got these little nuts welded on here. It's like it's designed to sort of something to screw on this way, it looks like. It's not really gonna work that direction for what I'm doing here, so I'm basically gonna flip this upside down. So it's sort of like this, and then I have the seat. I'm gonna put a little loop or something on the seat that will come down and latch on to this thing. So here's my latch mechanism, and so I get this guy on here, and then I can sort of set my height with my little screws here to figure out how I want this thing to sit. And then I'm going to need to make some nuts for this guy to sit in, and so I can weld those nuts onto the backing plate, and then I can thread this guy onto the backing plate and secure it in place. That's my basic plan there. But I need to figure out how my height is here, and in order to really figure out my height, I need to figure out what's the other part of this mechanism that this will be latching into. I need to make that. All right, so at the moment, at least I'm starting out with this just 14 gauge flat stock, and I'm imagining just using this part down here and making like a little notch here in the bottom so this can go into that little notch and lock everything in place. Right now I'm not sure how long this will be or how it will look, and I'm imagining some sort of welding some other piece onto here that then gets molded into the fiberglass of the seat pan. Alright, so back over on the bike, I'm going to use these screws to sort of set my depth here on this guy, how far off of the backing plate we actually want to be, and that will tell me how tall my little nut things I need to make will be. So that guy's on there, this guy goes on like so. I want some play in here between this guy and the backing plate, so we need, that's probably a couple mils of play, which is probably enough. So now we've got our little things drilled out here, and now we need to tap these. So, got our little M6 tap. Stick them in the little vise. Now I just have to figure out exactly where I want this thing to be, spacing on it, so that's probably right about there. I think it's good. Alright, so we've got this guy in here. I've got some shorter bolts on there now, and this seems to work pretty good. I go ahead and fully weld it in once I am certain that's where we want it. This guy also should fit in here pretty nicely. Lock everything in, and then in terms of where we want to cut this or where we want this to go, using this straight edge goes right across, and this thing just barely, that's right at the top there, so glad we didn't go any taller than that. And then that should I should be able to mark this thing approximately. And then I'm gonna have some other stuff coming off of this. I'm gonna reinforce and whatnot this guy. Let's go ahead and mark that. All right, that guy is marked. Now we need to figure out the rest of it. I've gone ahead and added these little screws to the top of my latch portion that's going to go onto the actual seat pan, with the theory being that these screws, they've got some nice ridges and grooves in them there for the screwy part, and that will help to sort of adhere them into the fiberglass and help secure it into the fiberglass. And then once it's in there, that getting it started is really the hard part here. I've got this lip on the end here that I can then loop some fiberglass over that. After I get this sort of main pan aspect done of the fiberglass, I can flip it over and then fiberglass in this thing, reinforce it a little bit more with that lip. Same theory down on this guy. I've got another screw on there just to get it started. I'm gonna stick that screw up through the fiberglass mat and then resin the mat and everything. And then once it's on there, once that's hardened, we'll go through and loop some fiberglass through this little hole thing that I've created on the bottom there to really secure this whole thing in there. That'll at least get everything aligned. So I know once the pan, the main pan part is finished or hardened up, then I can go ahead and reinforce all these little latches on from the underside. That's the plan. Let's get to it. I got some boxes and cardboard stuff to add on here to get a general shape, and I want to get some saran wrap and all that stuff. Get this thing shaped out some more. I'm gonna put the new tank on here because this one, clearly the shape of this is not going to be the same as an undented tank. So I'm gonna get the new tank on this thing, and so we can shape the fiberglass appropriately to the new tank. All right, so here is my new to me fuel tank. I got this off eBay, off another bike that had been wrecked or whatever, being parted out. And this guy is, guess what? The exact same tank that I had on my bike, but just not all dented up. So super stoked about that. It's not perfect, it's got like a little tiny ding and some scratches here and there, but it's a lot better. It does not have any of the components in it in terms of the fuel pump and all that stuff, so I need to swap those out from the other tank, but here it is. Isn't that lovely? Alright, now it's time to play with some cardboard. I've got just a sheet of scrap cardboard here. I'm going to start cutting out my little pieces here, and I'm going to probably end up taping them together or something to make this work. And get the shape I want, which I want it kind of flat here, and then you can see there's a little ridge here, and I got about 1.5 inches of foam that's going to go on top of there, which is about perfect with that ridge. So something like this, and then it's going to slope. I'm going to start sloping up like right here, and so it slopes something like to there, and then kind of goes flat up and through here. I think I need to cut these off at this point. I've gone ahead and taken the sub tray thing out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this section here in the saran wrap so that we've got saran wrap going up this whole thing. I'm gonna wrap the cardboard piece in saran wrap as well and sort of set that on top of here because I'm gonna have a hump here, I need my fiberglass to actually come and sort of stop right there. As we're doing it, it's gonna go over, but I need it to sort of stop right there ultimately, so there's like a real ridge here. So when I go to trim the fiberglass up, it'll have a nice little stopping point right along here and then flatten out back here. Alright, so now you can start to see my vision, or my plan here at least, which is I've got these two separate sections. I've got the frame itself, the subframe wrapped completely, and then on top of that I'm sitting this cardboard piece here that has this little screw sticking up, and that screw represents, or is attached to the other part of the latch, which sets, or sort of slots into the fuel tank right there, just below the fuel tank. And back here is the other latch, these guys here sticking up, these two screws. This goes to the latch on the back. And I'm hoping all those are aligned in there. I taped this guy down real well, and this one up here, I can see that one, and that one's really good. This one should be good. It's still taped in there real well. My next step is basically to start laying fiberglass down on this mother effer. So the point of having this thing on the top here is that you can still see the frame running along the side there. And so I want this to come over, and ultimately I'm going to cut the fiberglass right on the edge of this frame. So I want this thing to come down and sit on the frame. Alright, I'm going to start off with some fiberglass cloth. That's the woven stuff here, and that will allow me to more easily, I think, get it wrapped around these little screws here, and then we'll go with some mat on top of this stuff. And I still need to cover up my wheel and all that stuff down here. Alright, we've got the bike all wrapped up for Christmas here, and so it'll be protected from all the drippings from this crazy fiberglass resin smells and horribleness. And I'm going to go ahead and mix up the resin now. I've got some mat here also laid out, and then over here I've got my little scale set up so I can measure the resin, and basically got my little cup. I cut this off of a plastic container. Measure out the weight of the resin, and it's supposed to be 14 drops per ounce of resin. And I'm hoping that's ounce by weight, not by volume. Yeah. Alright, so yesterday we put down a first thin sort of test layer of fiberglass on here. I wanted to make sure I had the hardener ratio and everything correct on this, and that with the temperatures outside it would actually harden up, and it did. So I'm happy about that. So today I'm going to go ahead and try and finish this up in terms of getting the fiberglass applied, and then once it hardens tomorrow we'll go around and hopefully be able to trim this thing and then flip it over and do some more glassing on the bottom of this thing. And then the other thing, yesterday I went through almost this whole container, and this is like a little less than a quart. This guy here went through almost a whole one of that, which was more than I expected. It's been a while since I did fiberglass, so I should have, to do this seat pan, I should have just saved myself some money and bought this gallon size one in the first place. It would have been cheaper. And then the other thing that mistake I made on this guy when I was wrapping it with the saran wrap was that back here I didn't get it, the saran wrap, I didn't wrap it enough, or maybe I should have put some tape down across this thing first and then wrapped that to make it more rigid, because it sank in back here, and so now I'm gonna have to put in more fiberglass here and then probably grind off the bottom portion or something like that. If I were to do this again, I would put tape all along here and then saran wrap that tape. Alright, we've got this thing, I've let it dry for a few hours. It's hardening up nicely. And so at this point, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the angle grinder and cut these off, cut them down, all three of these guys, cut them down. And then I'm going to start laying down some more mat over the top of this. Alright, so next day again, and this thing is dry once again. And I'm thinking it's actually getting to the point where it's strong enough.
Yes, now
I can push the bike down with the seat, but we're still going to do a little bit more reinforcement on this thing. But first we need to peel this thing off of here. So All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and do some real basic trimming, make it easier to work on, hopefully. Alright, so after a lot of time spent fussing about and sanding and fiberglassing and smoothing things out and fitting and refiberglassing and refitting, and then I'm finally to the point now where I think I am happy with the seat pan on the CB500. Let's look at it. Alright, so what I've been doing here is using, this is a flap disc. It's like, what is this? It's a 36 grit flap disc. That's what I've been using on this fiberglass to just chunk away the fiberglass and quickly make work of taking out the big bumps in here and smoothing things out. Not to a polished finish for sure. At 36 grit, there's a really rough grit, but to a functional sort of smoothness. I'm just trying to do fitment on this. This is where it's at. It's shaped out to where I want it, and basically it's kind of cool. It's on the bike now. It's actually, it locks in here. Like, this thing is locked in. You cannot get it off, which is pretty cool. That's what you want in a motorcycle seat. And it has a little latch mechanism. You pull that and then it lifts off and you can get it off of there. This slots into the front, and then the little latch mechanism goes in here and locks it in. This little back plate here keeps the seat from sliding back and sliding off of the lock mechanism. That's how it all works. And then as far as the fiberglass goes, I've got this right about, and it varies in thickness. That's sort of accidental, not on purpose, but it varies in thickness. And so right about here, it's about ½ an inch. Up here, it could be like a whole, about almost an inch thick, I would guess. I think that's like, it feels like an inch right there, and about half, maybe less than half on the sides. And it is surprisingly lightweight for being as thick as it is. This thing probably weighs 5-ish pounds, something like that. Our next steps on this are to put the foam on it and then wrap it with upholstery. And I'm gonna go with a vinyl upholstery that you guys are just gonna love. It's gonna be pretty fun. So do that, and then this guy. So we're done with this, basically. Get the foam, get the upholstery on it, bam, we got a seat. Then the rest of it should be a lot more straightforward. It's a bolt-on stuff. The other things we're fabricating are pretty straightforward. They're not too fancy. I might decide to fancy them up, and so it could take longer, but I've spent already way more time than I expected to on this. I've been going back and forth with this for days. Coming out here, sanding, and part of it is just the process itself, because you have to wait for this stuff to cure. It takes a few hours at least for it to cure. And the temperatures are lower here right now this time of year, and so it takes a little bit longer. And so I've been taking days to do this, where it cures, I come out, trim, sand, put more stuff on, blah, 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 mess with it. And so it's taking a little bit of time. From this point forward, the process should speed up on this bike, and I'm really hoping this will be the halfway point, and we'll get this bike done pretty quickly. So thanks for watching this video. I hope this fiberglass stuff is interesting to anybody who hasn't done the fiberglass stuff. I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time. Keep on going on your own projects. This stuff is a lot of fun, and it's gonna be awesome once we get this thing finished and can ride it.